Simpsons. Despite running for more than 3 decades and producing over 700 episodes, The Simpsons only dedicated one full episode entirely to soccer. It aired in March 2014, just a few months before the FIFA World Cup in Brazil, and at first it looked like nothing more than another parody of the world's biggest sporting event. Instead, it became one of the show's most talked about predictions. The episode begins when Homer Simpson unexpectedly becomes the referee for the World Cup final after proving himself to be one of the only truly honest officials left in the game. As the tournament progresses, he quickly discovers that international soccer isn't just about talent. Powerful executives, corrupt officials, and even criminal organizations are desperate to control the outcome of the tournament. The biggest surprise comes during the final match. Germany faces Brazil, and despite enormous pressure to help the home nation win, Homer refuses to manipulate the game. Germany defeats Brazil and lifts the World Cup trophy. When the episode aired, Brazil was hosting the tournament and was considered one of the strongest favorites on the planet. Germany winning wasn't impossible, but it certainly wasn't a storyline most people expected. Just a few months later, reality unfolded in spectacular fashion. Germany humiliated Brazil in the now legendary 7-1 semi-final before defeating Argentina to become world champions. While the episode didn't predict the famous scoreline itself, it correctly showed Germany lifting the trophy before the tournament had even begun, instantly becoming one of The Simpsons' most famous sports predictions. But that wasn't the only thing the episode got people talking about. During the match, Brazil's biggest star is a striker known simply as El Divo. Every time another player gets close to him, he throws himself dramatically onto the ground, rolling across the pitch and pretending to be seriously injured in an obvious attempt to fool the referee. It's an exaggerated joke, until you remember what happened just a few years later. As Neymar became one of the biggest stars in world football, he also became one of its most controversial. During the 2018 World Cup, his theatrical falls and endless rolling across the grass became one of the tournament's biggest memes, spawning millions of videos and jokes across the internet. Suddenly, fans started comparing him to El Divo, claiming The Simpsons had once again predicted the future. Whether the writers genuinely foresaw Neymar's reputation or simply exaggerated a behavior already common in football, the comparison became impossible to ignore. For a show that only made one soccer episode, The Simpsons somehow left behind one of the most unforgettable stories the sport has ever seen. Captain Tsubasa. But while Springfield imagined the future of football, Japan was busy inspiring it. Long before Japan became one of Asia's strongest football nations, one anime convinced millions of children that their country could one day compete with the best teams on Earth. That anime was Captain Tsubasa. Released in 1983 and based on Yoichi Takahashi's manga, Captain Tsubasa follows a young boy named Tsubasa Ozora, whose entire life revolves around a soccer ball. To him, the ball isn't just sports equipment, it's a friend. From the moment he enters elementary school, his dream is crystal clear: become the greatest soccer player in the world and lead Japan to international glory. What begins as simple school tournaments gradually grows into regional championships, national competitions, and eventually international football, with every new rival pushing Tsubasa one step closer to his impossible dream. The matches became famous for their dramatic rivalries, impossible bicycle kicks, endless goalposts that seemed miles apart, and shots powerful enough to tear through nets. It wasn't realistic, but it didn't need to be. It made kids believe that anything was possible. Its influence reached far beyond television. Professional players including Andrés Iniesta, Alessandro Del Piero, Fernando Torres, and many others have spoken about growing up with Captain Tsubasa, while in Japan the series is widely credited with helping ignite the country's football boom during the 1980s and 1990s. The dream of seeing Japan compete with the world's elite no longer felt impossible. Today, every World Cup brings back memories of that dream. In recent tournaments, Japan stunned giants like Germany and Spain, proving they could stand toe-to-toe with football's traditional superpowers. Heading into the latest World Cup, many fans believed this could finally be the tournament where Japan made history. Instead, their remarkable run came to an end against Brazil. Even in defeat, however, the progress of Japanese football feels like the closest thing we've ever seen to Captain Tsubasa becoming reality. Blue Lock. But while Captain Tsubasa taught an entire generation to believe in teamwork, another anime arrived decades later with a completely different philosophy. What if teamwork was actually the problem? Blue Lock answers that question in the most extreme way imaginable. After Japan suffers another heartbreaking World Cup elimination, the country's football federation reaches a shocking conclusion. Japanese players have plenty of discipline, excellent technique and outstanding teamwork, but they lack one thing the world's greatest strikers all have in common: overwhelming ego. Their solution is Blue Lock, a massive high-security training facility where 300 of Japan's most promising young forwards are locked inside and forced to compete against one another. There is no friendship, no guaranteed second chances, and no room for sympathy. Only one player will emerge as Japan's ultimate striker. Everyone else will lose the opportunity to ever represent their country again. At the center of this brutal experiment is Yoichi Isagi, an ordinary high school forward whose greatest strength isn't speed or power, but his ability to read the game several moves ahead. Throughout the series, he learns that becoming the world's best striker isn't about copying others. It's about discovering his own weapon and having the confidence to use it when everything is on the line. Premiering in 2022, Blue Lock couldn't have arrived at a better time. Just weeks later, Japan shocked the football world by defeating Germany and Spain at the World Cup, and suddenly, social media exploded with jokes claiming Blue Lock had transformed the national team overnight. Of course, the anime wasn't responsible, but the timing made its message even more unforgettable. Captain Tsubasa taught kids to dream. Blue Lock challenged them to believe that sometimes standing above everyone else isn't selfish. It's exactly what champions do. Ashi. If Blue Lock represents football at its most ruthless, the next anime takes almost the opposite approach. Ashi isn't about impossible shots or eliminating hundreds of rivals. It's about learning how football actually works. The story follows Ashito Aoi, a talented but inexperienced teenager from a small coastal town whose natural instincts catch the attention of a youth academy scout. Invited to join one of Japan's most prestigious professional academies, Ashito quickly discovers that raw talent alone means almost nothing. Every player around him is gifted. What separates future professionals from everyone else is intelligence, positioning, and the ability to understand the game as a complete system. Instead of focusing on spectacular goals, Ashi spends its time exploring tactics, formations, movement of the ball, and the countless small decisions that determine the outcome of a match long before anyone scores. It's one of the reasons many coaches and football fans consider it the most realistic soccer anime ever created. As Japanese football continues closing the gap with the world's elite, Ashi feels less like fantasy and more like a reflection of the country's real development philosophy. Japan may not produce the biggest stars every generation, but it consistently produces intelligent, disciplined players capable of competing against anyone. Watching Ashi almost feels like watching the blueprint behind that success. Of course, not every soccer anime wants to be realistic. Some simply want to have fun, and almost none embraced pure chaos, quite like Inazuma 11. Imagine combining football with superheroes, martial arts, and Saturday morning cartoons. That's Inazuma 11. The series follows goalkeeper Mark Evans, whose school is on the verge of shutting down its soccer club due to a lack of players. Refusing to let the sport disappear, Mark begins recruiting teammates from across the school, slowly transforming an ordinary group of students into one of the strongest teams in the country. But this isn't normal football. Goalkeepers summon giant energy hands to stop impossible shots. Players launch flaming tornadoes, lightning strikes, and devastating techniques powerful enough to shake the entire stadium. Every match feels more like an anime battle than a sporting event. Premiering in 2008 alongside a hugely successful video game franchise, Inazuma 11 became a worldwide phenomenon among younger audiences, proving that soccer didn't need realism to be exciting. It only needed unforgettable characters, ridiculous special moves, and non-stop action. And while Japan's real national team continues earning respect through discipline and tactical intelligence, Inazuma 11 reminds us why so many kids fell in love with football in the first place. Sometimes it isn't about trophies or tactics. Sometimes it's just about believing your next shot can summon a tornado. Finally, we arrive at perhaps the most unique soccer cartoon ever created. What if football wasn't played on Earth at all? That question became the foundation of Galactic Football. Released in 2006 by a French studio, the series takes place in a future where entire planets compete against one another in the galaxy's most popular sport. Every team possesses a mysterious energy known as flux, giving players extraordinary abilities that transform ordinary matches into spectacular battles unlike anything seen in traditional football. At the heart of the story is the Snow Kids, an underdog team from the frozen planet Achillean. After their world mysteriously loses its legendary flux, they must rebuild from nothing, overcome impossible odds, and challenge the greatest clubs in the galaxy to restore their planet's pride. Although Galactic Football never reached the same global popularity as Japan's biggest anime, it earned a loyal fanbase thanks to its unique mix of science fiction, sports, and surprisingly emotional storytelling. Even today, many fans still remember it as one of the most creative football cartoons ever produced. From predicting Germany's World Cup triumph, to inspiring an entire nation's football culture, to imagining tournaments between planets, these series prove that soccer has always been about more than 90 minutes on a pitch. It's about dreams, rivalries, impossible comebacks, and believing that the next generation might achieve what the last one couldn't. And who knows? If Japan finally wins a World Cup someday, maybe we'll look back at these cartoons once again and wonder if they weren't just telling stories, but quietly predicting the future all along.